consider your position well, unplausible, let's say.
I would have two remarks. One is to what Marina said when she was talking about Nazism, or actually the Shoah as an outcome of colonialism. I think that it is a very big and very important challenge to actually look at the continuities of colonial practices and Nazi practices. But I think we have to be very precise in that, and not only take into consideration the continuities, but also the discontinuities. And we have to see that it is not that colonialism automatically led to the Shoah. It is very important to see. I mean, just to give two examples. Like one is, for example, a very clear continuity is how the German colonialism actually was a kind of exercise for the territorial war on the Soviet Union, including also the extermination of Jewish people there. I mean, it was practiced basically. But another thing, like where we see a clear difference is that like different forms of racism also have to be analyzed in their differences. For example, with anti-Semitism and the colonial racism, there is this big difference of anti-Semitism being this twofold kind of racism, including the superiority actually of the racified object, which is the Jew in that case, which does not exist in the colonial in the colonial racism. And so, I mean, that was just a short remark, and maybe also to Silvia. I think that like in total, I was really I think it was really great your analysis, although me not knowing so much about the specific situation in Slovakia, but I think like what we see in Europe, this is like we see very similar developments in the whole region. Regarding your thesis actually of the civil war in like Central Europe or Slovakia, I mean, what is often quoted today, Wallerstein's division in the center and periphery. It's also important to mention that he also talks about the creation of the semi-periphery, which means like these territories that are actually created in order to disguise the fact that there is a periphery. And I would understand like the region of Central Europe more as a semi-periphery in that case. And I think it's very important to be alarmed. Like I do not agree with the colleague who, like, to me it sounded like for you it's totally out of any imagination that there could be a kind of I don't know military war also within Europe. I think it's not true. On the other hand, I agree also it's a question also here of being precise and thinking about which concepts we can shift from, for example, Latin America to semi-periphery like Central Europe.
Yeah, we disagree quite fundamentally, I would say, because for my concept, the territorial instability is the main subject to be discussed when we speak of new integration. It's the concept of the integral. It would have been much harder to take over integrated countries with strong political elites. You could even see this in Poland. That was the only country which had a sort of a discussion within the acquis communautaire process, and also now with some exceptions of the contract of the European Union, because it is a big country, because it is united, because there is no Belarusian, Polish or whatever regional or religious split. There is, but they are not. They didn't lead to a splitting, for instance, of the country, like in Czechia and Slovakia, like in the Baltic region. And then you speak of the long traditions. We didn't speak of long traditions, sorry, but there is no long history of Estonian, Lithuanian. If you see Lithuanian as the Polish-Lithuanian empire, you are right, but that's not the Lithuania from today, or Latvian state. It was under German control in the medieval, and then it became Tsarist, and or it was Polish-Lithuanian. So there is no tradition in that sense. It can be now formulated, okay, but within this process of being deterritorialized from a multi-ethnic building like Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, or Yugoslavia, within this process, just in the first years, there came this takeover of profit-seeking Western capital, or Far East Asian capital, and I think this is an important thing to remember. I agree with you when you speak of hyperinflation as a consequence of the economic downturn in Eastern European communist countries since the middle of the 70s, as I said. So this is in a way homemade, but not only. There is always the external factor. For instance, that countries like Romania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia not so much took foreign credits and somehow ran into this debt trap built by IMF and World Bank. On the other hand, in this transformation process, we have to think that this hyperinflational outcome of the crisis, which already touched the communist countries very heavily, was used to clarify the markets for new investors. That's what I said. But partly we agree with this, that this is not the hyperinflation was not made by only outside. It was used, it was transformed, it was somehow used for the new investors, because they had to have the possibility to have a convergence in financial terms and not to deal with inflationary processes.
I will just make a remark to the remark. I think colonialism is not an exercise, as you said.
That's not what I said.
Yeah, so I will never say something like this, because I think in both cases the structurality also of colonialism has to be taken very seriously, and also the system that was produced. And yes, on discontinuity, but also continuities, I think has to be both taken. Here I made this remark because I wanted to put clear kind of a much wider point that was actually exposed by this confrontation between fascism and communism. And I thought it's important to exemplify why this was the product of the post-war period, and why actually this antagonism was put forward and was actually in one way made one of the major, so to call, antagonism, in order to actually not go back in the analysis that will completely make another view on the whole Western so to call Western context of Europe, and on the whole, so to call economical but also institutional framework. So I thought
maybe also to add some notion to this, that fascism is not a consequence of colonialism. I also do not agree, and if we want to have a good example, let's talk about fascism in Spain, for example, which graduated after Spain lost its last colony in 1898, which was Cuba, and Spain suddenly, from the height of the empire, found itself completely lost, which this losing of the pride of an ancient imperial was always a water on the mill when building the fascistic nationalistic theories, which then flourished in 36 and in the regime of Franco until 75. So and about and maybe yes, about the civil war, or well, yes, I mentioned the phrase civil war. Maybe that was not correct enough in comparing it with Latin American countries where there are really civil wars. But that's not as important. The important are the processes which lead to some form of mass extermination or the history of the whole society. When we talk about the Second World War on the territory of Slovakia was just a satellite state without strong politics. It was completely subordinated to fascistic Germany, and we cannot talk about the civil war. It was not a civil war, but still the mass extermination which also occurred here, or the deportations which occurred here on the territory of Slovakia, they were all of them consequences of the same processes we are regarding today. And so maybe not civil war, but the violence in broader context of Central Europe. This is not as important if it happens on the territory of Slovakia or if it happens in Central Europe. Or it's still, in a way we are already experiencing a civil war. In theoretical, just maybe not as violent.
In a way, now your position is a little bit ambivalent. That's why you make this comparison with Latin America and saying that you can say that and they affirm that there is a kind of civil war, and here you cannot compare. So it's like I would like to have from you a kind of more strong position saying that it's concerning like migration policies in the EU. Is a kind of is a civil war. It's a kind of extermination. It's a kind of so.
What we have now, and similar with Latin America, is the strong neoliberal concept, which is driving to force some reactions that are very, very well known in Latin America for maybe 200 years or 100 years, depends on the country. That's very similar process. We are still not in the situation like I said without the narco traffickers, etc. But there are other forms of war, and it's also directed by some bureaucratic process, which in a way was also the case of Nazi Germany. It was also legislative.
At least since Slovakia takes part in NATO, they are in war, if not in civil war.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I thank you. I thank you for this. I thank our speakers, Marina, Gržinić, Hofbauer, Silvia Rupeltova. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the interest. We have to leave this space. But there is opportunity to continue this discussion maybe in smaller circles. Upstairs.
Factory.
In the factory?
You will see that.
In the factory. Okay. Thank you very much.